Did you know that the same English word can mean completely different things depending on whether you're in London or New York? Imagine asking for a rubber in America when you just want to erase something, or ordering chips in Britain when you're craving French fries. Today, I'm going to solve the mystery of British versus American English once and for all, giving you the essential foundation every beginner needs to communicate confidently with English speakers from both sides of the Atlantic. Welcome back to Learn English 2 podcast, where we make mastering English simple, practical, and absolutely achievable. I'm your host, and today we're tackling one of the biggest sources of confusion for English learners worldwide, the differences between British and American English. Now, here's the wonderful truth. Both varieties are completely correct and widely understood around the world. But as a beginner, knowing these key differences will prevent embarrassing misunderstandings and help you choose which variety to focus on for your personal goals. We'll start with the most basic everyday words, explore how these differences appear in daily life conversations, and build habits that help you master both varieties. Whether you're planning to visit London or Los Angeles, study at Oxford or Harvard, or simply want to understand English movies and TV shows from both countries, this episode will give you everything you need to succeed. Let me begin by explaining why British and American English develop differently, and why this matters for your learning journey. When English settlers arrived in America in the 1600s, they brought their language with them, but then both countries continued evolving separately for over 400 years. Britain had influences from nearby European countries, while America developed its own innovations and borrowed words from various immigrant communities. The result is two beautiful varieties of the same language, like two branches of the same tree. For absolute beginners, the most important thing to understand is this. Choose one variety as your primary focus, but learn to recognize both. If you're planning to work in America, study American English primarily, but understand British terms. If you're moving to Britain, focus on British English but recognize American expressions. However, in today's globalized world, most native speakers understand both varieties perfectly. So don't stress about making the wrong choice. Let's start with the absolute basics. Food vocabulary, because eating is universal and these words come up in daily conversation constantly. In Britain, you eat biscuits with your tea, but in America, those same sweet treats are called cookies. British biscuits are what Americans call crackers, savory, dry, and often eaten with cheese. This single word demonstrates how the same term can refer to completely different foods in each country. The word chips creates even more confusion for beginners. British chips are thick-cut fried potatoes that Americans call French fries. American chips are thin, crispy snacks from a bag that British people call crisps. So when a British person says, "I'll have fish and chips," they mean fish with thick French fries. When an American says, "I'm eating chips," they probably mean something like potato chips from a bag. Here's a practical tip for beginners. When you're not sure which variety someone is using, the context usually makes it clear. If someone mentions chips with fish, they're probably British. If someone talks about chips and dip, they're probably American. Your brain will learn to pick up these contextual clues naturally with practice. The word rubber is particularly important for beginners to understand because it can prevent embarrassing situations. In British English, a rubber is what Americans call an eraser, the small object you use to remove pencil marks. In American English, rubber often refers to condoms or rubber materials in general. So if you're American and you ask a British shopkeeper, "Where can I find rubbers?" they'll direct you to the stationery section, not the pharmacy. Moving into transportation vocabulary, we encounter some of the most dramatic differences between these two varieties. The British Underground Railway system is called the Tube or the Underground, while Americans call their similar systems the subway. Both terms are perfectly clear to speakers of both varieties, but using the local term shows cultural awareness and helps you fit in better. British people put petrol in their cars, while Americans put gas or gasoline in theirs. The British boot of a car is the American trunk. The British bonnet is the American hood. British people drive on the motorway. Americans drive on the highway or freeway. These differences matter when you're asking for directions or discussing travel plans. The word lift versus elevator appears constantly in daily conversation. British people take the lift to the 3rd floor, while Americans take the elevator to the 4th floor. Notice that floor numbering also differs. British ground floor equals American 1st floor, British 1st floor equals American 2nd floor, and so on. This can cause real confusion when meeting someone or finding an office. Let's explore clothing vocabulary, which affects daily conversations about shopping, weather, and personal style. British people wear jumpers when it's cold. Americans wear sweaters. Both terms describe the same knitted garment, but using the local term helps you communicate more naturally. A British person might say, "It's chilly today. I need my jumper," while an American would say, "It's cold today. I need my sweater." The word pants demonstrates how the same word can refer to completely different clothing items. In British English, pants means underwear, what Americans call underpants or boxers or briefs. In American English, pants means trousers, the outer leg covering that British people call trousers. So if a British person says, "I like your pants," they're talking about your trousers. But if you're American, this comment would be quite unusual. British trainers are American sneakers, both referring to casual athletic shoes. British Wellington boots or wellies are American rain boots or galoshes, waterproof boots for wet weather. These clothing terms appear frequently in weather-related conversations, shopping discussions, and daily routine descriptions. Pronunciation differences add another layer of complexity, but also richness to English learning. The most noticeable difference for beginners is the R sound. Americans pronounce the R sound at the end of words like car, water, and teacher very clearly. British speakers often soften or drop these final R sounds. So car sounds more like ca, and water sounds more like wada. The A sound in words like bath, dance, and chance differs significantly. Americans use a short A sound, like the A in cat. British speakers use a longer ah sound, like the A in father. So Americans say bath with a short vowel, while British speakers say bath with a longer vowel. Both pronunciations are completely correct and widely understood. The word schedule demonstrates consonant pronunciation differences. Americans pronounce it schedule with a hard sk sound at the beginning. British speakers pronounce it schedule with a soft sh sound. Again, both are correct, and context usually makes the meaning clear regardless of pronunciation. Now, let's discuss how these differences appear in everyday life, conversations, and why understanding both varieties enhances your communication skills. When you're watching international news, British reporters might talk about queuing, while American reporters discuss standing in line. Both mean the same thing, waiting in an orderly line for service. In workplace conversations, British colleagues might suggest having a chat, while American colleagues propose having a talk. British people ring their friends on the phone. Americans call them. These subtle differences in verb choice reflect cultural communication styles as well as vocabulary preferences. Shopping conversations reveal many vocabulary differences. In Britain, you push a trolley around the supermarket. In America, you push a cart or shopping cart. British shoppers stand in a queue at the checkout. American shoppers stand in line. British people pay by check. Americans pay by check. The spelling differences in written English often accompany vocabulary differences in spoken English. Home and family vocabulary also shows interesting variations. British children attend primary school, then secondary school. American children attend elementary school, then high school. British students go to university. American students go to college. These educational terms matter when discussing academic backgrounds or planning studies. British people live in flats. Americans live in apartments. Both terms describe the same type of housing, a residential unit within a larger building. British people might describe their flat as having a sitting room, while Americans would call the same space a living room. The British garden is the American yard or backyard. Let's explore how to build effective learning habits that help you master both varieties without confusion. The key strategy is conscious exposure combined with active practice. Spend 1 week focusing primarily on British English content, BBC News, British TV shows, British YouTubers, British podcasts. Then spend the following week focusing on American English content, CNN News, American TV shows, American YouTubers, American podcasts. During your British English week, keep a vocabulary journal specifically for British terms. Write down biscuit, sweet treat eaten with tea, and rubber tool for erasing pencil marks. During your American English week, record the American equivalents. Cookie, sweet treat, and eraser tool for removing pencil marks. This systematic approach helps your brain organize the differences rather than getting confused by them. Practice switching between varieties consciously. Describe your morning routine using British vocabulary. I had biscuits with my tea, then took the lift down to the ground floor and walked to the underground station. Then describe the same routine using American vocabulary. I had cookies with my coffee, then took the elevator down to the first floor and walked to the subway station. Reading practice should include both varieties. British newspapers like The Guardian use British spelling and vocabulary, while American newspapers like The New York Times use American conventions. Notice how British articles write color and center, while American articles write color and center. These spelling differences reinforce vocabulary differences. Advanced vocabulary building becomes easier when you understand the historical and cultural reasons behind these differences. Many American vocabulary choices reflect the influence of other immigrant languages. Americans say fall instead of autumn, partly because early German immigrants used similar seasonal terminology. Americans say garbage instead of rubbish, partly due to French influences in the language. British vocabulary often reflects closer connections to other European languages. British aubergine comes from French, while American eggplant describes the vegetable's appearance. British courgette is French-influenced, while American zucchini comes from Italian. Understanding these etymological connections helps you remember vocabulary differences more effectively. Some words exist in both varieties, but with different emphasis or frequency. Both British and American speakers understand intelligent and clever, but British speakers use clever more frequently in casual conversation. Both understand angry and mad, but Americans use mad to mean angry more often, while British speakers more commonly use mad to mean crazy or insane. The word quite demonstrates how the same word can have different intensities in each variety. British quite good often means fairly good or moderately good. American quite good usually means very good or really good. This Difference in emphasis can affect how enthusiastic or lukewarm your comments sound to native speakers. Cultural awareness enhances your ability to choose appropriate vocabulary for your audience and situation. In British business contexts, you might arrange a meeting or book an appointment. In American business contexts, you might schedule a meeting or set up an appointment. Both are professional and appropriate, but using local terminology shows cultural sensitivity. British politeness conventions often involve more indirect language. British people might say, "I wonder if you might possibly consider," while Americans might say, "Could you please?" British, "I don't suppose you could," versus American, "Can you?" Understanding. These cultural communication patterns helps you interpret meaning beyond vocabulary differences. Let's discuss practical strategies for handling situations where you're unsure which variety to use. First, listen to your conversation partner and mirror their vocabulary choices. If they say lift, you say lift. If they say elevator, you say elevator. This matching strategy prevents confusion and shows cultural awareness. Second, when you're genuinely confused about a term, it's perfectly acceptable to ask for clarification. You can say, "Sorry, when you say chips, do you mean the thick ones with fish or the thin ones from a bag?" Most native speakers appreciate this kind of clarification question because it prevents misunderstandings. Third, develop flexibility in your comprehension while maintaining consistency in your production. This means training your ear to understand both biscuit and cookie, but choosing one term for your own speech. This approach reduces cognitive load while maximizing communication effectiveness. Modern technology offers excellent tools for practicing both varieties. Set your phone to British English for 1 month, then American English the next month. Use British Siri or American Alexa voice commands. Watch British Netflix shows with subtitles, then American shows. This technological immersion reinforces vocabulary differences naturally. Language exchange apps allow you to practice with native speakers from both countries. Specify whether you want British or American conversation partners, and ask them to correct vocabulary choices that sound unusual in their variety. Most native speakers enjoy explaining these differences and appreciate learners who show interest in cultural nuances. The globalization of English means that many modern terms are becoming standardized across both varieties. Technology vocabulary like smartphone, laptop, Wi-Fi, and download is generally identical. Business terminology like marketing, management, and networking shows increasing convergence. However, traditional everyday vocabulary maintains historical differences. Regional variations within each country add complexity, but also richness to English learning. Scottish English, Irish English, and Welsh English each have unique features. Southern American English differs from Northern American English. These regional varieties demonstrate that language diversity exists within countries as well as between them. For international English exams like IELTS, TOEFL, and Cambridge exams, understanding both varieties provides significant advantages. IELTS accepts both British and American spelling and vocabulary. TOEFL focuses on American English but includes listening passages with various English accents. Cambridge exams traditionally emphasize British English but increasingly include American materials. The key to exam success is consistency within each response rather than mixing varieties randomly. If you write color in one paragraph, don't write color in the next paragraph of the same essay. If you use lift in speaking, don't switch to elevator in the same response. Consistency demonstrates language control and awareness. What an enlightening exploration of British versus American English we've shared today. Let's review our essential discoveries. We learned that both varieties are completely correct and widely understood worldwide. The key is choosing one as your primary focus while recognizing both. We covered crucial vocabulary differences in food. British biscuits versus American cookies, British chips versus American French fries. Transportation vocabulary showed us British Underground versus American Subway, British petrol versus American gas. Clothing terms revealed British jumpers versus American sweaters, and the important difference in what pants means in each country. We explored pronunciation differences like the R sounds and vowel variations that distinguish the accents. Most importantly, we established practical learning habits, alternating focus weeks between British and American content, keeping separate vocabulary journals, and practicing conscious switching between varieties. Remember, the goal isn't to choose the better variety. Both are equally valid and valuable. Your choice should depend on your personal goals, travel plans, and the native speakers you interact with most frequently. The key to success is consistent exposure, active practice, and cultural awareness. Your exciting homework assignment will transform you into a British versus American English expert. This week, choose one variety as your primary focus. If you're planning to visit America or work with American companies, choose American English. If you're planning to visit Britain or study at British universities, choose British English. Spend the first 3 days immersing yourself in content from your chosen variety: news, podcasts, YouTube videos, and TV shows. Keep a vocabulary journal with at least 10 new words per day from your chosen variety. Then spend the next 3 days exploring the other variety, creating a comparison list of equivalent terms. On day 7, practice switching between varieties by describing your daily routine using both sets of vocabulary. Subscribe to Learn English 2 podcast and hit that notification bell so you never miss our daily English lessons covering both British and American English. Share this episode with friends who are confused about English varieties. Help them discover which variety suits their goals best. Leave a comment telling me which variety you've chosen to focus on and why. I love hearing about your English learning decisions and goals. Next week, we're exploring common English mistakes that even native speakers make, so you definitely don't want to miss that eye-opening episode. Remember, mastering both British and American English varieties makes you a truly global English speaker, opening doors to opportunities on both sides of the Atlantic and everywhere English is spoken worldwide.